his mom asked if I can make one like this one for her because she liked the color and the stitch, and I said no problem. And that's what I'm gonna do, one exactly like this one but for adult size. So I need to leave a tail long enough for my 80 stitches, or 81, because we're gonna pass that one over the first one. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. I'm gonna let go. Fold it in half is for 20, and let go, and fold it in half is for 40, and fold it in half, enough for 80, plus a little extra to lose that tail. I'm gonna do a slip knot. I'm gonna do the slip knot again, that way you see how I make my a slip knot in the middle of my work for the long tail cast on. So I wrap the yarn like this, I remove it from my finger, and you see it's crossing the front there, and I pass this yarn under that loop and up, and like that I created my slip knot. So with a 4.5 millimeter knitting needle, I'm gonna cast on my 81 stitches. 80 for the stitch of the hat, and that extra one to make sure that our hat is nice and even when we work in the round. So I will meet you here when I have my 81 stitches. I have my 81 stitches, and I forgot to mention that this stitch is multiple of 2. So if you want it smaller, you can remove 2, 4, 6, or you want it bigger, you can add 2, 4, 6, 8. So I don't did a knot at the end because we're gonna cast off the stitch 81, and we need to be able to make that loose. So you're gonna pass the first stitch from your left hand to the right hand. It's a little open straight there. Now you're going to pass the second stitch from your right hand needle over that stitch, and you're going to cast it off. And now you can place that stitch back to the left hand needle, and in here you're going to pull this 2 strand, and you're going to do a knot. And like that, you are ready to work in row 1, and your hat, the border will be nice and even in here. Okay. Now we're gonna start with row 1, and I'm gonna place a marker. And make sure that when you select your markers, even they're the plastic one or whatever you have, whichever, make sure that you select for the beginning and end of each row a different color or a different style marker. That way when we start the decrease of the stitches, you know each time you finish and start a row, because if they are all the same, you sometimes will make the mistake of going by that marker and continue with the same stitch, or one part short of the stitch. If you're working just net row, don't matter because it's just net, net, net. But when you're doing a stitch, it's good to know when you start a row. That way you start with whichever repetition you have to do. So for the border, I'm gonna do 1 net 1 purl, a rib stitch of 1 by 1. You can do 2 by 2, 2 net 2 purl, but I'm gonna do 1 net 1 purl. And you're gonna do this all the way around. So I will meet you at the end of this first row. Remember, it's just one knit, one purl. I finished my first row or round, and like that you're going to continue with one knit, one purl until you have the desired width for your brim. So you have here two choices. You can do a 1.5 inch brim, or you can do a long one. That way you can fold it in half and you will have that fold for your hat. So you will have to do much bigger than 1.5 inches, because this is for the short version of the brim. But if you want it to fold, you'll have to do around 6 inches. That way when you fold, or more, 6 inches or more, when you fold your brim in half, it will be like that. You can do more. You probably 7 or 8 inch, around 18 centimeters. That's 7 inch for the brim. If you want it to fold, if you want it a small one like this, just do 1.5 inch. But if you're gonna do it to fold, it has to be nice and wide. So I don't know yet what my daughter wants, so I'm gonna work for 1.5 inch, and I will wait for when she finish work, and I will ask her if she want a small one or a big one to fold. So it's up to her. So once I have the length, I will let you know which one I did, if I did a 1.5 inch or the wide one, and if I do the much wide, I will let you know how many centimeter or inch I will do. Remember, I'm working now by measurement the length of my hats, because I don't know which yarn you're using, if you're using a thinner yarn or a thicker yarn, or different needles, different tension, and you want to do the same size of mine. It's easy for me to give you the measurements. Okay, so I'll continue working one knit, one purl until I have the brim. So here is my border for the hat. My daughter picked the wider brim, so when she folded it in here, it will be nice and warm around her ears when she goes in the morning to work. So it will be like that. So now I'm gonna do my first row of the 4 row of a stitch, and the first row is one knit, one purl, exactly the same as we done so far. But what I'm gonna do is change my needle size for the first row. So I'm gonna start working with my 5mm, and I don't need the marker in here because I'm changing needle. So with the 5mm, I'm gonna do one knit, one purl, one knit, one purl, one knit, one purl. So like this, I'm gonna continue working all the way around until I have transferred all my stitches to my 5mm netting needle. So this stitch is working 4 row all round. So the first one is this one, that is one knit, one purl. Row 2 is a net row. Row 3 is one purl, one knit, and row 4 is a net row. So it's very easy stitch and look really nice. So and easy to keep track of your rows or round. Okay, I have my 5mm netting needle already in place, and I'm going to place the marker because we're going to use the marker. And now we're going to do row 2. In row 2 is a net row, and I already have here in this notebook You know, everything I write down, this is in English and this is in Spanish, so and I already marked that I did one row, and I'm not counting my row. I just doing this to keep track, that way I know in which row I stop if I had to leave my work, because I want to know if I'm in row 1, 2, 3 or 4. So each time I do a row, I do a little line, so that will be 2 and then 3, and when I do 4 I will cross and tap. So that's how I'm gonna guide myself. I'm not gonna count, like I said, my row. I just in case I had to leave my work, I will know where I have to start. Okay, this is a very easy stitch, but you have to do it right, the way it look, the stitch look right. So this is row 2, it's a net row, and I'm gonna write in the description box, you know, the stitches, the pattern for the stitch. So it's very easy. So I will meet you here when I'm done this row of net. It's very easy and fast stitch to do. I finished row 2, and I already marked that down in here with a little line that I did row 2. Now we're going to work on row 3. I bought these beautiful pens in eBay. I saw them in Wish, and they were twice the price, and then I ordered them in eBay, and they are cute little cats, and that's the tail and the little feet. They come like this. There are 4 of them. They're adorable, and they have a nice fine point, so I'm using them for this, for my keeping track of my stuff. So now I'm gonna work in row 3, that is the reverse of row 1. Row 1 was 1 net 1 purl. Now we're gonna do 1 purl 1 net. So this is 1 purl, 1 net, 1 purl, 1 net. This is a gorgeous stitch. I love the stitch. It's very easy to keep track, and it look fantastic. This will look fantastic in a sweater, in an adult size sweater as well, because I already made one for William, and I love the stitch. So you're going to continue with 1 purl 1 net all the way around this 3rd row, or round. I finished row 3, and now for row 4 is a net row. So you're going to net all your stitches, and thus those 4 rows is the repetition that you're going to do over and over. So it's very easy. The only thing that you have to make sure when you do row 1 and 3 is if you do row 1 1 net 1 purl, and then row 3 will be 1 purl 1 net, the reverse. Okay, otherwise you don't gonna get the stitch. Now this is a net row all the way around. So I finished row 4, and I press my line like this. I have my 4 line, 3 up and 1 sideways. And then now I know that I have to do row 1, and row 1 is 1 net 1 purl. And you see how easy is this stitch? So if you find difficult to do the top of your hat, the decrease with the double pointed needle, you can do 2 together, 2 together, 2 together. But I really recommend to give it a try to the double pointed needle, because I'm going to be doing all my hats with those decrease, because they give a really nice shape, to the hat, and it looks really nice when you put them on. Okay, so I really recommend it to try the double pointed needles. So now we're doing repetition of row 1, and is 1 knit, 1 purl. So I'll meet you here at the end of this row. I finished the repetition of row 1, that was 1 knit, 1 purl. Now we're going to do the repetition of row 2, that is a knit row. You're going to knit every single stitch. It starts to look really nice. You can see the stitch already. I finished repetition of row 2, that was a knit row. Now row 3 is 1 purl, 1 knit. One purl, 1 knit. 1 purl, purl, knit, purl, and knit. And like that, you're going to continue working 1 purl, 1 knit all the way around. I finished repetition of row 3, that was 1 purl, 1 knit. Now row 4, the repetition is a knit row. And you're going to knit all your stitches. I really love this stitch. It's a very simple stitch, but the texture is really nice. I'm planning to do a hat and a cowl for my husband, so I'm thinking this stitch, it will be really nice for it. And it's really a fast knit. So I finished the repetition of row 4, and I will mark it here. And now I'm gonna start with repetition of row 1 all over again. So from 1 to 4 over and over until I have my length. So now for the length, you don't want to measure like the other hat from the border here, because this is going to be folded. So what I recommend to do is from the first row of the stitch that you can see there pretty much, because it changed the texture of the piece, you measure from here, from the beginning of the stitch, 1.5 inches out. That's the 1.5 inches if you do yours narrow. So you mark here, and what you do is you from there will do 5.5 to 6 inches. If the person that you're making this have a lot of hair or a little bigger head, you make almost 6 inches. But if you have in the smaller side, you will do around 5.5, give or take 1 or 2 rows less or 1 or 2 more. Okay, before we start with the decrease. So that's what I recommend. Of maybe you like all these to be folded and you want to start marking your measurement from here. So I give you the idea, and you will do your hat whichever way you want yours. You can do this one that fold less, and here you can do it that fold more. So for mine, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here and measure my 1.5 inch. I will place a marker here, and from here I will be measuring until 5.5 inches, give or take a row or 2. Okay, so I will work with camera, and it's a really beautiful stitch. You'll see in yours, if you decide to make one, you will love this pattern. So I will meet you here when I have my 5.5 inches. Here I have 3 repetitions of the stitch done so far, and I wanted to show you just in case you're not keeping track in a piece of paper of your rounds or the repetition of the rows. And what you can do to guide yourself is by looking at your stitches. You'll have, for example, here you have 1 purl, and then you have 1, 2, 3 net, and then the next one is a purl, number 4, and then 1, 2, 3 net, number 4 is a purl. And for example, here I have, now I'm going to do repetition of row 1 again. I already did my first stitch as a net, and the second is a purl, and here I have that purl, and then I have 1, 2, 3 net, and now I have to do a purl in here. And that's an easier way for you to guide yourself as well if you are not keeping track in which row you're working. Okay, I have my 5.5 inch, a little bit a row over my 5.5, and I'm working in the repetition of row 1, and that is 7 times already. This is number 7 that I did the motif. So I start row 1, I did 1 net 1 purl. Now I'm gonna do repetition of row 2, that is a net row, and I'm gonna start with my decrease and placing the marker. That way it's easier for me when I do my decrease. I already did my first decrease. I record that in Spanish. Now I'm gonna do it in English, and it's all the same. The row of decrease is gonna be in the repetition of row 2 and 4. That is a net row, and then 1 and 3 will be the motif of row 1 net 1 purl 1 and row 3 purl 1 net 1, and those stay the same as you work. I'm gonna continue with the design of the stitch as I decrease. Okay, so we're gonna net 14, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and now 15 and 16, we're gonna knit them together. That's the decrease. I'm gonna place a marker, and again I'm gonna knit 14 and then do another decrease in 15 and 16. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and now 15 and 16 together. And like that you're going to continue until you have 5 space in between each marker. And then here you're going to do the same, and before you get to this marker, the last 2 is together because it's 15 and 16. Working in the repetition of row 3, and it's 1 purl 1 net, so we're going to start with 1 purl, 1 net, 1 purl, knit, purl, knit, 1 purl, knit, knit, 1 purl, 1 knit. And here before the marker I have 1 stitch, was where we did the decrease. That stitch always go as a net. I did this one a net stitch, and this one is a net. Always the one before the marker will be a net. I already took William's hat away from here. So you see, you have that net stitch in here always. No matter what stitch you do, you always will have that one as a net, the one before the marker. So you do that one a net. You're gonna pass your marker, and then you're gonna work. If you look at the stitch, is a purl. You see, you finish before the marker with the net. This one, a net, and then you jump here with a purl. This one don't count, okay? So now you have to do like you start your row, 1 purl, 1 net, 1 purl, 1 net, all the way until the marker. The one before the marker is a net. You pass the marker, and then you start again with another purl. I'll show you one more time. Start with 1 purl, 1 net, purl, 1 net, net, purl, net, purl, net, purl, net, purl. You see, I have 2. This one is a net, and the one before the marker is a net. And like that, you're gonna continue, and I'm at the end of that row. I finished repetition row 3, and since I recorded in Spanish and English, I record this in Spanish and then now English. So we're gonna work 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 net, and the last 2, 14 and 15 together. We are doing a decrease row. That is a net row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 over stitches, 11, 12, 13, and you see the last 2 is 14 and 15. You net them together, and that's what you're going to do in this row. I will show you one more time. So you're gonna net 13, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14 and 15 together in a net stitch. And like that you're going to continue in this row, that is repetition of row 4. We're going to work a repetition of row 1, and that's 1 net 1 purl. So nothing changed, only that we are decreasing in the net rows around. So you're going to start with 1 net 1 purl, net 1 purl. So nothing changed, we keep exactly what we've done so far. We continue doing, even if we are decreasing, we still are doing this sand stitch. So it's a very easy stitch to keep doing as you decrease. So a purl, now a net, and as you'll see, the last one before the marker is a net. Again, I have a net here, and this one is a net. So you will do a net, you're going to pass your marker and start like you start in the first marker. You start with 1 net, because if you look, I have a purl here. So you have to start, after you pass the marker, always with the net in this row, a repetition of row 1. And then when you do in the repetition of row 2, then you pass the marker, you start with a purl. So you're going to continue. This is a very easy hat to make, and it looks really nice with the decrease in the top of the crown. So it's not difficult to work with double pointed needle. I found that the more I use them, the more easy it gets to work with them. So practice make perfect. So 1 net, 1 purl, 1 net, and I'm here. I can feel the marker in here between my finger. So this one is the one before the marker. You net that one. You pass your marker, and again you start with 1 net 1 purl. Because if you look here, this one is a purl here, so you have to do your net stitch. I finished working the repetition of row 1. Now we're gonna work repetition of row 2, and it's a decrease row. It's a net row and a decrease row. So you're gonna net 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, and then 13 and 14 you net them together. And you're going to continue doing this repetition until you have 8 stitches in between each marker. In one row you decrease, in one row you just work the stitch. In row 1 and 3 is the stitch row, so you start with a net and then a purl, net, purl, net, purl, and then always the one before the marker is a net. You'll have a nice line of net stitches up the top of the hat. So if you find that it's too difficult for you to work with a circular needle, you can change to the double pointed needle, but I have a lot of space still here that I can work with this one for quite a few more rows. So I'm going to work off camera, and I'm going to continue doing exactly what I showed you so far. So in one row you decrease, in one row you decrease in the next row, and another row you do the stitch at the repetition of 1 or repetition of row 3. Okay, so good luck. Now I have 8 stitches in between markers, and I'm gonna change the circular needle to the double pointed needle. And to be honest, this is one of my favorite hats that I ever made. They look amazing. You fold these in here, and they give you a beautiful, beautiful shape for a hat. So now we're going to change to double pointed needle. If you don't have double pointed needle, you can continue with this, just pulling the cable out and then netting 6 and then 7 and 8 together, and so on. And then in the next row you will net 5 and 6 and 7 together until you have 2 stitch on each space in between the markers. So now we're going to change to the double. now we're going to be working with the double pointed needle. I have my 4 needles here, and you're going to continue, if you like, with the stitch as you're supposed to, or you can do just net all the stitches, but I'm going to continue with the repetition of the stitches. I did a repetition of row 1 when I changed to my double pointed needles, and now I had to do repetition of row 2, that is a net row, and you're going to net all your stitches until you have only 2 left, and those 2 left, they will be together. I'm getting more used to work with the double pointed needle. I find it much easier now since I've done quite a few hats already, and I already cast on another one with my 4mm to do another hat like this one, but that one will be in red, scarlet, and it will be with the same stitch as this one, and it's 100% wool, the one I'm making off camera for one of my other daughters. Like that, you're going to continue. You see the last 2 on each row, they're going to be together. This is the one I'm working off camera. It will be exactly the same as this one, but with 100% wool, and is in red. So you're going to continue decreasing on every single row. The red that I'm making is with the 2-ply wool yarn, 100% wool from Canada, Canadian wool. I'm going to continue with the stitch, and this is a net row. The last 2 together, and now again in here, and the trick is to have that one under the ones you're going to be working. That makes things more easier for you. And the last 2. Together. And now we're going to start with the repetition of row 3. If you like, you can put a marker here. That way you know which one is the one that you're supposed to do. But I got myself by this marker here. This one in my left hand is the beginning of the round. I'm going to start repetition of row 3 and start with the purl, so you have to go on top of this one like this and do the purl. And then a net, a purl, a net, and then 2 net together, the last 2. You pass your marker and then do the same all the way around. You start with a purl and finish with 2 net together. Now you have to do repetition of row 4. That is a net row. So you're gonna net 1, 2, 3, and 2 together, net 3, 2 together, and so on. And then after that, you're gonna start with repetition row 1. There's a 1 net, 1 purl, 2 together, 1 net, 1 purl, 2 together. And you're gonna do that row, and then you're gonna continue working until you have 2 stitches in this side of the marker, 2 in this one, 2 in the needle, 2 in that one, and 2 in the last one. 10 stitches in total, and then we will close the top of the hat. I'm gonna work off camera just those few extra rows. I have my 10 stitches left, so I'm gonna cut a piece of yarn, and then I'm gonna pass it through those 10 stitches and to the inside, lose this tail, the other tail, and we are finished our hat. its tail, you're going to lose it in the outside of the hat. That way when you fold your brim, you don't see the seam in here. These will be nice and even. I don't have a lot of yarn left. I only have this little bit, like probably 10 grams. So remember, this was 85 grams, the ball of yarn. So it's just a little bit left. I'm gonna put it out in my model and I will show you the end result, but I love this hat. Well, this is the end result and I love this hat. It's a little bit loose in this foam head because I don't have any hair, but once you put it on in a real person with hair, it will fill up. Well, even for a bald person it will work as well, because these ones are more like a teenager size foam head. So I hope you guys like it and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you are not already a subscriber. And if you make this hat and you want to send me some pictures, you can do it through my Facebook page, Ruby Stedman Crochet, or my Instagram, Ruby Stedman Crochet. Please share my videos with friends and family. That way you help me grow here on YouTube. I wish you have a beautiful day. Bye.